Hello, everyone. This is Danny Haiphong, and you are tuned in to The Left Lens, where I will read one of my published articles, this time published September 15th, 2021. The title of this article is Austerity and Mass Murder in American Pastime. Please subscribe to Black Agenda Report, donate, and subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/Danny Haiphong if you are able. Let's get to the article. Not a month after the eviction moratorium was allowed to expire in the United States, did the Biden administration do away with all pandemic-related protections. The latest casualty in the U.S. race to the bottom is the federal unemployment boost, which provided $300 per week to workers not generally considered eligible for the benefit. Estimates predict that at least 15 million workers across the United States are now at risk of losing their housing. Millions more will see their incomes drastically dip amid devastating spikes in the cost of living. These breakneck austerity measures come as the contagious Delta variant continues to kill more than 1,000 people per day. The pandemic has only further exposed how mass murder and austerity are an American pastime for the ruling class of the imperialist albatross. Nearly 900,000 people have died over the last 18 months due to the refusal of the United States' political class to curb transmission of the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the Biden administration's hoarding of Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, it is estimated that 100,000 more people will die from the virus in the United States before the year's end. Workers in all sectors of the capitalist economy are quitting their jobs in record numbers as they weigh the risks between engaging in low-wage work or avoiding COVID-19. Cuts in pandemic-related protections send a message that workers must make a choice: go to work or find themselves hungry and houseless. This choice didn't emerge from the pandemic. Rather, such coercion is a pillar in the foundations of U.S. capitalism. Capitalism is predicated upon the sale of labor to capitalists, or those who own the means of production privately, to accumulate maximum profit. A wage is provided to workers at a fraction of the value that they produce. The rest is pocketed as profits for the bosses. Austerity is a key feature of the neoliberal capitalist stage of development, where finance and monopoly capitalists have calculated that any so-called welfare state, quote-unquote, is an obstruction to their lust for profit. That calculation is based upon the very real crisis faced by a system mired in contradiction. The more intense the exploitation of the worker becomes, the harder and faster the system reaches a what's called bust cycle vis-a-vis underconsumption, generally in Marxist terms called overproduction. Austerity is an acknowledgement that underconsumption is a permanent feature of capitalism at this stage of its development. That's why universal welfare policies such as Medicare for All, a living wage, and student loan forgiveness find no support from any section of the capitalist class, regardless of their political persuasion. The class war inherent to U.S. capitalism is maintained and nurtured by state violence. U.S. capitalism has long surpassed its European forefathers in its capacity for brutality. The U.S. was founded upon a white supremacist chattel slave system, which killed millions of Africans and left millions more in subhuman conditions of wage-free labor for several centuries. Indigenous people were nearly exterminated by a settler colonial regime that served as a precondition to U.S. development. Neither Africans nor indigenous peoples have received reparation for the crimes of colonialism, and their oppression continues into the present day in a myriad of forms. This includes the mass incarceration system, which has a population of 2 million, or 25% of the global total, 40% of which is Black American. And it also includes the legal lynch mob, popularly known as quote-unquote killer cops. Police departments kill Black and indigenous people at nearly 3 times the rate of white Americans. The entirety of U.S. society has been militarized as well, not just the cops and the prison system. A massive surveillance system collects data from every individual residing in the United States as a means of social control. The U.S. military apparatus receives trillions of dollars to assert its hegemony abroad through drone strikes, invasions, coups, special operations, and a host of other forms of conventional and non-conventional warfare. There is no shortage of examples that demonstrate the direct link between militarism and austerity. The U.S. refuses to pledge the necessary $25 billion to vaccinate the world from COVID-19, but has no problem providing the same sum of money to the Pentagon for endless war. Furthermore, Biden has spent more on military weaponry to local police departments in the first quarter of his administration than the average quarterly expenditure under Donald Trump's 4 years in the Oval Office. The U.S.'s addiction to militarism has an enormously negative impact on the economic health of the most oppressed sections of humanity worldwide. Extreme poverty has risen across the globe during the pandemic, and the economic conditions of Black America specifically have only become more precarious over this period. State violence and militarism are thus tools of repression, which help reproduce the misery of the exploited classes. These conditions have intensified the antisocial character of the U.S.'s quote-unquote exceptional capitalist system. Hurricane Ida serves as a prime example. More than 50 working-class residents, many of them low-wage workers, immigrant workers, were left to drown due to a lack of warning about the severity of the storm. Hundreds of thousands were still without power more than 11 days after Hurricane Ida passed through New Orleans. This is what is meant by austerity and mass murder being an American pastime. The ruling class, what Glenn Ford referred to as the lords of capital, has nothing to offer in the way of resolving the crises engendered by the system. Despite a global pandemic, climate catastrophe, and economic instability, the Biden administration is moving full steam ahead to satisfy the blood-soaked profits of its donor class. The race to the bottom will continue so long as the Democratic Party maintains a stranglehold over left politics. A reckoning is in order. The motive force behind this reckoning will be determined by how soon we can develop a critical mass to shut the gates on the Democratic Party's graveyard of social movements for good. You have been listening to a reading of my latest published article in Black Agenda Report on September 15th, 2021, titled Austerity and Mass Murder, an American Pastime. Again, subscribe to Black Agenda Report, donate if you can, and subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/Danny Haiphong to support independent left journalism right here in the belly of the beast. Thank you so much.